On behalf of Nagpur branch of WRC YCI, I welcome a very prolific speaker, C. Mohit Dhanji, to a very important relevant topic, audit quality maturity model. Friends, this is something which is a self-evaluation mechanism, and that is the reason this stands so very relevant in today's scenario. When I had a word with Mohitji had just taken a session of this at Pune branch. So I just had a word with him कि sir वो पुणे में जो धुआंधार आपने वहाँ पर बैटिंग करी थी sir, we need the same instructions directions here for our Nagpur branch members as well. So the time was short, but he kindly accepted our invitation, and so on behalf of Nagpur branch, sir, it's extremely thankful to you, sir, for really gracing this occasion. Because this audit quality maturity model, this is a tool of self-evaluation of audit firms and proprietorship firms towards technologically driven mechanism to increase the operational efficiency. कुछ बातें ऐसी होती है जहां पर हम दूसरे ऑडिट के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट होते हैं, जहां पीयर रिव्यू की बात होती है, बट जहां पर ये चीजें, दिस इज अ सेल्फ इवैल्यूएशन थिंग, and I feel this is the USP of this process which has been initiated by the institute. This is still recommendatory in nature, but highly useful for the professionals in practice. Let me take me as a proud privilege to introduce CA Mohit Dhanji, a practicing chartered accountant from the city of Pune. They're having their office at Jabalpur as well. He is a partner of Agarwal Dhan Motwani and Company, based principally at Pune, having a branch office at Jabalpur, with an experience of offering a bouquet of fully integrated strategic advisory and auditing services. Mohit Dhan comes with an experience of decade of practice. He's now more than 10 years. 2011 he qualified a chartered accountant by profession. His expertise lays in audit and assurance, risk and advisory. When this word comes as risk and advisory, everything becomes so relevant for a speaker to say on that. He's a speaker with ICI and has delivered various lectures on internal audit, technology enabler in audit, audit and assurance standards, EQMM at Pune, what I told you, internal audits and risks organized by ICI, IASB and various branches of ICI. He is a contributor to e-book published by Committee for Members in Practice, CMP, of ICI on Office Management Manual for Members in Practice. So a multi-dimensional personality, because not only from the angle of learning, but from the angle of office management as well. He has got his own expertise. So definitely would request Mohit, if in between you get some time, you can say a few lines, 1 or 2 lines about this office management as well. Because in this corona, this word has become really so very relevant and very important. True. As all of us are really gearing up for and waiting up कि यहाँ date का extension शायद आ जाए. अगर date का extension आ जाएगा तो शायद ये session और ज़्यादा interesting हो जाएगा. Yes. So thank you so much, Mohit sir, for gracing this occasion. And about the forthcoming events, I can tell the members that tomorrow there is going to be a seminar on professional development and networking. Networking is a very important step announced by Institute for the benefit of members, the networking guidelines. I request all of you to please take maximum benefit of this. For the first time, this is going to be a session like wherein there are 2 CA couples who are going to take up the 2 sessions. The first session is about how to manage work life and personal life, and the other session is going to be about this networking. So friends, a really good opportunity for every one of us to come and enjoy that session. And I would invite all the CA couples also to come this, because this is a session specifically designed for couples. On Monday, we are going to have a session on auditing standards applicable for non-corporate entities. So auditing using the auditing standards and following the accounting standards applicable for non-corporate entities by Padma Shri Madam on Monday. On 30th of December, we're going to have a session on code of ethics. So there are so many more things which are going to come out of it. I request all of you to please stay in touch with Nagpur branch and get the maximum benefits and deliberations. Thank you so much. Now I request Mohit to please start his presentation.
Thank you, Sagarji. Thanks a lot for inviting me and being a part of this session. I would like to thank Nagpur branch for keeping this session an interesting session. I would say the need of an hour. And the participants, I understand today is 25th, being 25th and the peak period of audit, still the participants enjoy. So I would like to thank them. So I'll just, I think yesterday also there was a seminar on EQMM, and which CA Vijay Maniar Saab has covered a part of it. I'm going to cover the rest of the leg of it. But I'll just go through and I'll just recap on the background. And before I go into a technical details of AQMM, so I would say that, this is one thing which has come up and which is need of an hour, though it is little, it will be cumbersome for us to implement and it will be a pain point initially. But I, as being on the same boat as you all are, I see that it's a huge opportunity, right? And as I also mentioned in my last couple of this thing, that it's all about mindset. It's nothing new that you're going to learn. This might discourage you also to attend this session, but I want to be very honest opinion on this, that it's nothing new that you are going to learn. You are already following at least 30, 40, 50, 60% of this in your day-to-day life. The main challenges with us, mid-size or small-size firms, is that we do over-auditing, but we don't document it. So, the main about, and if you see the big firms, might be that, the level of work you are doing at ground, you are doing higher than them, but they are auditing, they are documenting it. So that's the reason. And if it's rightly said that if it is not documented, it's considered as not done. So it's mainly about the documentation, putting in right practice into the place. Today, the expectation of the stakeholders is very high from the auditors. It's not only from the limited shareholders, but it's also the governments, banks, investors. So all these stakeholders have a very high expectation from the auditors, and it's very important that we follow this AQMM so that we can improve the quality of overall assignments. And I think once we have followed and you come into that league where you have this system processes in place for the CA firm, I think that there's no limitation to the work. This, in a very short span of 10 years, when I started my practice from scratch, I understood that if you standardize the things, if you are putting in a right perspective, you are following the process, it has always helped us to build the trust with the client, to build a trust with the stakeholders and get in more assignments. So it really helps. It's more, and now till now the onus of internal control was on the auditee, that we used to go and check whether the client has an internal control, whether client is putting the policies and procedures in place. But I think that onus is being shared now, and being an auditor, we also need to see that we have an internal control policies and procedure in the firm that which is auditing. So that is a change. So I'll just first, how we'll go about this session is that I'll do a recap on AQMM first. Post that, we will talk about why it has come. So recap on the yesterday's seminar. I'll skip the part 1, which is already covered by Vijay Saab yesterday, and I'll cover the rest 2 part of AQMM, which is basically a human resource management and a strategic, basically covering the infrastructure part. So AQMM is a capacity building measure and great initiative of ICI, I would say, and where there is a self-evaluation evaluation has to be done by practicing chartered accountants, by the firm, to see that at what level of maturity we are in, right? Where we stand today as per the benchmark. What is the benchmark? So this benchmark you can get from the AQMM, which will help you that, okay, this is what the need or the benchmark is, and where as a firm I stand today. So it helps to self-evaluate the maturity model of the firm, identifies the areas of competencies that your firm has. It can be in respect of the people you have, partners you have, technology we have, because it helps you to set up a KPIs, KRAs, and then review gradually what exactly, and it gets you a framework where you can actually measure the performance, you can measure the maturity of the firm, right? So it helps you to identify what are the capabilities, competencies the firm has. It also set up a roadmap of how to go to the higher level. What we want to do is everyone wants to have a good firm, have a quality, but what exactly we have to do to achieve to that level was something which was very subjective. So if I say that if you follow this, there is a good quality. Someone can tell, okay, if you do this, but we didn't have a complete exhaustive checklist or a framework or a Bible which says that, okay, if you follow this, it will be considered as you are delivering a good quality audit, and you have an infrastructure to deliver a good quality audit. So that is where AQMM help us to measure, right? It helps to build a capacity of and self-evaluate that where we stand and what we have to achieve over the period. So why it has come, the background is that there are various standards which are still applicable to the every chartered accountant, practicing chartered accountant, which are not being followed. So based on the study of QRB, that is Quality Review Board, it has come to a notice that SQC, that is Standard on Quality Control, is not being followed. SQC is not being followed. Then basic policies and procedures are not in place in the CA firms, and that's the reason, there are a lot of statistics which is being given that this much percentage of people in the firm does, practicing chartered accountants even don't have the management representation letters, they don't have a proper documentation, they don't have the communication with the those charged with governance management. So all this has bring us to a stage where it's an initiative by ICAI, so that we can follow and implement those things. So this is the reason behind why it has been implemented. The few of the more observation, if you see that there is a non-compliance from the independence, difference of opinion. So there is no standardization, non-compliance of standards has been seen by Quality Review Board. And that's the reason they want to standardize and bring in a support system where we can follow and adhere to the policies. Again, the weaknesses which has been identified by the peer review board is technical standards not followed. Audit documentation is inadequate. As I mentioned that we might overdo the audit, but the documentation is a weakness for a small and mid-sized firms. So that was missing. Because if there is, you must be seeing that there are a lot of, there has been a lot of bodies, NAFRA and all, when they reassess the case, if something goes wrong, then they find that there is no documentation in place. And if there is no documentation, how the partner had come to a judgment, if that is not clear, then you become guilty of misconduct, right? So management representation letters are not being taken, written communication to those charged with governance has not been issued, practice manual is not there, quality review manual is not maintained. So this is all about, mostly talk about documentation, policies and process that a firm should have, which is missing. So this is an observation of peer review board with all size of firms. Now to address this and to identify the areas of the firms that where the firms is lacking, to develop a roadmap to a higher level of maturity, this AQMM is a collaborative approach between peer review board and Center of Audit Quality, which is in Jaipur. So there is a Center of Audit Quality which has been set up to bring in more and more standards on quality, to do a research on how the benchmarking and quality can be improved. Right. So this is a collaborative approach between CAQ, that is Quality of Center of Audit Quality, and peer review board. Now, before going to AQMM, I would like to discuss that though AQMM is recommendatory as of now, right, for a practicing firm or a practicing chartered accountant, but what is compulsory or what is mandatory to us to follow as a firm or as an auditor? So currently there are a lot of standards which are already, there is a compilation, there is a mandatory issuance that we have to follow. It's mandatory for our CA firms, right? So standard on auditing, standard of review engagements, standard on assurance standards, standard on related services. So these are the standards. Standard on quality control, that is SQC. So these all standards, irrespective of whether you are a big firm, small firm, or an individual practicing chartered accountant, whether you are auditing a listed entity, company or not, these all standards are compulsory as of now. So if you go and see these standards, so the base from where AQMM coming is these standards. So if you follow these standards, I would say most of the part is already covered, at least in operations part in the AQMM. So these standards, it's important that we follow these standards. So standard quality is standard on quality control is basically, it doesn't talk about the specific assignment. It covers a broader area where it tells you that what policies and procedures you should have, a firm should have for execution of the work in respect to the 6th element which has been mentioned, covering leadership and all those 6 elements. So it's a broad framework which is applicable in any kind of assignment, whether you are doing standard on auditing, you are doing auditing, you are doing value added services. So standard on quality will be a standard which has a broad framework and applicable to all those assignments. Now, why these standards, which we mentioned about in the last few slides, is important and why it is compulsory for us to follow. Auditing standards are mandatory by ICAI. So Council of ICAI has made it mandatory for us to follow. Companies Act require us to follow this, and if it is not being followed, then it is considered as misconduct. The CA shall be held as guilty of professional misconduct under the Schedule 2 of the. So that's why of the Chartered Accountant Act 1949. So these are the reasons why we have to follow these standards. Why I am going to these standards and talking about the basic is that if we have these basic things in place, right, it will help you to implement AQMM in your firm. Now coming to AQMM, I'm just taking it as a recap because it is already covered yesterday. AQMM is applicable to the firms, right? Any firm, it can be a partnership, proprietor, firm, who are auditing the following entities. First is a listed entity or bank other than a cooperative banks. So except multi-state or cooperative banks. So if you have and in the bank, branch is exempt. So if you are doing a bank audit at office, then only it is applicable to you, and it is applicable to the firms who are doing audit of an insurance company. So these are the firms to which AQMM is applicable. As on date, it is mandatory. Going forward, let's say it has not been clarified by the ICAI, but let's say while discussion it has come across that maybe in a year or so it will become compulsory. So this is the first level. Even if you don't have a CA, audited entities today, you don't have any bank or an insurance company. So one might feel that it is not relevant to me. Let's ignore and let's leave it. See, this is we are talking about the standards and practices of the firm, and it is not possible if it becomes compulsory to you, or if you get an opportunity of any listed company, you will not be able to do it because you don't have AQMM implemented. So it will not be a right way to look at that. If it is, I don't have any big client, let's leave it. So it's a roadmap for you tomorrow. That it can be two things. If you get a listed entity as a client, you are not able to take it because you have not implemented AQMM. Second is that once this is made compulsory for these big size of firms or firms who are catering to these kind of client, it can become recommendatory and then mandatory to the next level of clients, right? So phase-wise implementation, how Ind AS, IFRS has been implemented on phase-wise, same will be a strategy in AQMM. So it's important that we start adopting right now and start implementing in the firm whatever is possible. Maybe 20% in this year, 25% in next year, 30% next year. So let's say you can have 2 to 3 years plan where you can start implementing these good practices, which will help you to ensure, it is like I would say this is like a mask in this COVID era, right? So if you are following this, at least you are protected and you don't have a risk. So this is protected. This is a protective shield where if something goes wrong, something happens, and there is an inspection of your work that is being done, you are very clear that I have followed this. This is as per the standard. I am following the professional standards, ethical standards, regulatory work, so that I am protected that way. So it will help us. It's not only for getting the client, but it's also de-risking yourself, because once you have followed these standards, you are protected. So I would highly recommend that even if you don't have the listed entities, you should look at it and you see that, okay, how slowly and gradually you can implement in your firm. So this is, it is divided into 3 parts. So section 1, which was covered yesterday, carries 2.8 marks, which talks about the practice area, workflow, quality review, service delivery, quality control, benchmarking, main technology adopted, revenue, budget and pricing. So overall, it has 9 section in section 1, 9 sub classifications, and covers 20 to 80 marks. Then today what I am going to cover is the human resource management part, which covers 2.1 to 2.5. It is end-to-end journey of the employee, right from the recruitment, assessment to the retirement or exit of an employee. What kind of infrastructure is being provided, what kind of ecosystem, training, upskilling is provided to the team, right? How the work allocation is done, how the team allocation is done, everything is covered, and in a very practical manner, so that if that is followed, what is the ranking that firm will get. So this I'll be covering section 2 today. And then we have section 3, which is on the strategic and functional. So it covers basically infrastructure and the credentials that a firm has. So it comprises of 80 marks. So total is 600 marks, 600 points or marks you may call as. And then there is a maturity level. So are you level 1? So if you're getting up to 25% in each section, it is considered level 1, which is very initial stage, nascent stage of firm, and you need to improve to go to the level 2. If you get up from 25 to 50% in each section, then you are level 2. If you get 50 to 75, you are at level 3. And if you are above 75, you are level full firm. And these all rankings, once it becomes mandatory, will be hosted in the ICAI website, where clients will have access to this ranking of the firms. And definitely, it will be like if you have to go even for a haircut, what you do is you see the Google ranking, right? What is the ranking of this salon? Or if you want to take any service, doctor, anyone, you do a Google ranking of that person or a company. Same way, it's not. So in the context, it will be a ranking of a CA firm in respect to the quality, process, policies implemented, and whether this firm can deliver the quality of the assignment. So these ranking will be hosted in the website of the firm of the ICAI, where the client will have access to these rankings, and based on that, the client can decide. So I think it's an opportunity in a way where if you're looking to get into a audit area, if you want to specialize in an audit area, and if you are a serious player, follow AQMM, and I think you will be there. So this level, maybe first year you are level 2, you can see that how we can go to the level 3 because you have a roadmap. Now, operations was yesterday covered by Vijay Saab, so I'll not cover this, and we did the recap of this thing. I'll start with the human resource management. So human resource management is basically the core of any CA firm. Let it be any firm, small size, mid size, individual, anyone, but the core is human resource. Why I say so is, irrespective of any technology you use, the skill set that is required to audit, right? If you are auditing 2 firms which has same turnover, same kind of business, same nature of business, still the complexity will be different, which technology cannot identify. As a person, as a team, someone has to identify. It's the heart of the organization is human resource, human capital, the people involved in the business. So we have, this AQMM covers how they are being treated throughout the life cycle of human resource. Are the right kind of people, right number of people in the firm? Are there right skill set? If not, what is the framework so that the people can be upgraded to do their task? Are they competent, upskilled? Is the framework provided, technology infrastructure provided to the human capital to at least deliver what is required? Are there policies favorable to them in respect of work-life balance, in respect of their well-being? Do you have policy to work from home, right? So all these things are covered. Obviously, it cannot go one-sided. There has to be review, there has to be output which is desired. So that all has to be balanced, and see that there is a win-win situation for the people who are working, for the firm, and there's a right kind of infrastructure that we need to. So as I used to play basketball, and my coach used to always tell that if your kit, the dress that you are wearing is well polished, it's well dressed, your efficiency increased by 30%. And I think that's what I have experienced, that if you have a right kind of framework, you have a right kind of infrastructure, technology, or whatever you need is in very systematic manner. It doesn't matter it is high end or whatever, but at least the basic is in place, right? The process policy is in place. Obviously there is no no point that why the quality should not improve. If you have the right kind of people, infrastructure, everything in place, I believe, and we have experienced, that quality will obviously increase. Now, what is the objective, right? What is the objective of AQMM? The objective is to get a high quality audit financial statements for the stakeholders. So to get this high quality audit financial statement, what is the input or what is required? So we require audit professionals who are in the right numbers. So there is availability of audit professionals. They are competent enough or skilled enough or trained enough to execute the audit assignment or any other assignment, and they have a right focus, right? This is important, that right number of people are available, they are competent enough, and they have a focus. Focus is important. When the focus will come, focus will again will come when you have a right kind of expectation from the people, you have a right kind of infrastructure, the JD is very clear, their KRAs is clear, the process is clear how they want to do audit. I think if that is clear, they are taken care of well by compensating, they are taken care of for the well-being point of view, there is a work-life balance, yes, then there will be a focus. So the focus in this area is how we get our right kind of people, we give them a right kind of ecosystem so they can deliver a high quality audit. And the process is obviously important, that with this input, if you have this kind of people, competent, focus, what you need is that you have a right leadership who gives who have a objective of getting a right kind of assignments with quality to be delivered. There is an incentive system of people who are performing high. There is independence, infrastructure monitoring. So with this input, right kind of processing, the firm is bound to get a high quality financial statements or high quality audit. Now, every one of us face this challenge, right? So what are the challenges of auditing firm while recruiting and retaining the talent? The moment you start hiring and you see that the candidate, even it's freshers or from the industry or experienced, the moment you want to hire, first we have to decide whom to hire, and then once you decide that I want to hire these kind of people, the first response, or there is a reservation from the candidate to join the CA firm. This we experience, and I'm sure you all must have experienced, that there is a reservation of joining the CA firm or auditing firm. So what are the root cause? There can be various other factors basis the firm size and nature of people, culture, values, but these are some few common points which I could see that because of this there is a difficulty to recruit and retain talent. First is history of long working hours. I think weekends we still have 6 working days, mostly I'm talking about 6 work. Then during audit season it's very obvious to sit late nights, early morning, work on Sundays. So this is something which is we have a history of long working hours. If you see the software industry or other industry, they're more organized. They also have the deadlines, but someone needs to look and see what is the root cause, that why we are not able to complete the work on time. We are still, as on date, waiting for extensions, right? I'm sure that there are a lot of other factors and website and client, COVID and all those things. But still, if you see that we at the last moment, we are waiting for a few things to be done. There is a long working hour. So this is one of the reasons that we are not able to recruit or retain people. Second is high employee turnover rate. So if you see that someone has joined today and within 6 months he has resigned and there is someone else who is coming. So with this, what happens if you have a good people at a mid-level, they are not able to perform because their junior is, exiting, maybe in 3 months, 6 months or 8 months, and they're not able to focus and give the quality. So they also move out of your firm because they feel it's very difficult to train people on daily basis and get the results. And third and important point is that employee well-being. We have seen that firms don't have right policies, even in these 2 years, because I written, Sakesh mentioned about the e-publication that we did with ICI. Then we did a few other publications with PCAS in Pune about how to go about in this COVID period, how the firm should manage, what should be the pay that they should do, whether they should do a pay cut, they should not do a pay cut, how they can get an output from people working from home. But it was not a very satisfying percentage of the firms who could implement work from home policy. See, everyone, it was not possible to come to the office, but still it was very less number of firms, I would say, who could implement a right, work from home policy in a right perspective, where they could set up a complete IT procedure, they could build a VPN, LAN, everything to the, staff with a centralized documentation server, and they could assess, and there was a review process. So they were very new firms. See, it was not allowed to come to the office, so people managed, but have we managed in a right standard way? So, there were, if you see and look at this, there will be very less numbers. So still after, as the lockdown was, stopped, and people used to come to the office and they also suffered. So we need to see that the human health is very important in this today's world. So do we have a right kind of policy which gives employee satisfaction, which have a work-life balance, right? So because of these three factors, there is a difficulty to recruit and retain talent in any auditing firm. There's one more survey which I was going through, and it was very interesting, so I thought to discuss with you that what do audit employees think of their employers, right? As a partner, as a director in that CA firm, as a partner or senior manager, you would like to know that what these people are thinking about the firm. Are they happy? Are they satisfied? Are they not? What parameters they think of, where we should improve so that we can give them a better ecosystem. So there is a survey which I'll show in next couple of slides, that what audit employees think of their employers. Second is, what determines employees' satisfaction in audit firms? Everyone wants that their people should be satisfied, they should be happy. But there are few parameters that what exactly we should, what should be the parameters that we should work on so that our people are satisfied. So this covers basically career opportunity. So what one look at when it look at their job, or one look at that I want to work in this firm, what one needs, right? And what they expect from the firm. They expect career opportunities, senior management response, leadership, team support and response, compensation and benefit, work-life balance, and culture. So survey says that if these 5 things are taken care, then people are happy to work. But what percentage? What should be given more weightage than other? So this also we'll see in next few slides. And is the employee satisfaction and work-life balance linked with audit quality? So today we are here to talk about only audit quality, right? How to improve. The primary focus is how to improve the audit quality. So after doing all this, will we be able to implement high quality audits or deliver high quality audits? Definitely the survey says yes, and we have also experienced that yes, once these things are taken care, definitely your quality improves. Let it be audit, let it be any assignment, the quality will improve. So this is a survey which I was talking about in the last slide. It's a survey between, done for the big firms and the small firms, and out of the rating of 5, how they, what is the rating of firms, small and big, medium firms and big firms. So out of 5, if you see the overall rating, the employees of big firms have rated 3.6 out of 5. So they say that okay, they are satisfied and they get they give 3.6 rating out of 5 to the big firms. In small firms, it is little lower. It is 3.42. Compensation, obviously, big firms has a better compensation and other benefits than the small firms. Career opportunities, they have bigger clients, they can allocate the performing resource to a very good or a big clients. They have on-site opportunities outside India, in India. So definitely they have good career opportunities. Senior management, they people feel that it is more structured in the big firms. But if you see the work-life balance, this is all about, this is not my personal this thing, this is a survey which I have taken a relevant extract of. It's the work-life balance. People see that the small firms have a better form work-life balance than the big firms. And if you talk about the culture, people feel that it has a better ranking in the big firms than the small firms. Now, if we talk about the overall satisfaction, right? What satisfies people working with you, and what should be the mix of these components or these parameters? So this survey says that people look at these three things as majority. First is culture and values. Do we have a right kind of culture? Do we have a right values of the firm? And it matters. So if you have a right value, right culture in the firms, it has to be set up. We talk about that, yes, the culture of that firm is right. So even I am compensated a little lower, but yes, I am okay to work with that firm, right? So after one point in time, money matter, but after one point in time, money only doesn't matter. It also matters that how you are behaving with your people, how you are taking care of your people. Are they, again, are they enjoying working with you? So what is the culture? What are the values of the firm? Is the firm transparent? It has an open culture. Are you listening to people? Are you doing feedback? Are you trying to improve? Are you growing? So all those things will depend on the culture and values of the firm. Then career opportunities. Obviously, today I'm ready to join as a small firm or a mid-sized firm and ready to take a little lower compensation. But do I have a career opportunity where I'll grow? I see in 2 years I can go to the next level. Or there's a bottleneck where partner is handling everything and the only legwork is done by the team. So definitely they don't see after a year or so, they'll feel that I'm saturated. Now let's go out. So this comprises of 25 to 26% of the parameters. Senior management, what is the tone at the top? It matters. Like, there are right kind of people at the top? Do they have a skill set? How they support their team, in execution of the work? It matters. So if you see majority, I would say approximately 75% of the composition of the parameters is culture and values, career opportunities, and senior management. And then it comes to work-life balance and compensation. So I think it is unsaid acceptance by the auditors that, okay, we are okay to work little more than what is expected, but what we want is that these parameters are taken care. And the surveys also says that yes, work-life balance of the auditors has improved the higher quality of audits. Now, before going to the AQMM, this is the last slide which I would like to cover, is that what kind of skill set today we need, right? So definitely we need a technical skill set. Daily there is a change in the regulatory, practical prospect, standards, regulatory, change in the nature of the business, AI, so technology, everything is changing, right? And you have to be upgraded technical side of it. Also, there is in the last few years, you have seen that the skill set of the soft skills is very important from the auditor's point of view, because there are more and more interactions from the clients. Because now, initially we used to start audit and in one cycle we used to complete each and every aspect of that audit and go to the client and get a set of queries. But now it has become more agile. You communicate with the client in more frequent manner. You break your audit into small parts, interact with the more stakeholders, because that kind of vouching and everything is taken care by the artificial intelligence or the negative reports and all. So you are focusing more on the business side to understand what are the complexities, what can be the complexity. So there are a lot of communication that is going on. Today we are interacting on a online platform through this all online I would say platforms, emails. So it's very important that we are able to convey or set up a right perspective of our queries and make them understand. And this is possible if we have a right kind of skill set, if we are able to communicate in a very right way to the candidate, to the clients. So this is important. Upskilling, training, it's a continuous process. Now, when we talk about that, what is a new skill someone should have as an auditor in this technology, emerging technology, we see that we need to be more agile, right? We cannot have a 3 months plan of the audit. Definitely at a broader level you can have, but every week you need to see what next, where you are getting the issues, go deeper into that issue rather than just following the traditional plans. This is an agile approach. We need to learn how to follow that. Data scientists, there are a lot of data, how to use that data, cyber security, IT, data analytics, right, RPAs, design thinking, cloud. So these are the new skill set where irrespective whether you are doing a very big corporates or you want to go on the IT side of the audit, irrespective of that, you need to have these new skills if you want to audit a decent sized client, because they are moving to the technology and our base is business, right? We are auditing the business. If business is changing, if the way of doing the business is changing, definitely there's a time where we need to change our processes, align ourselves with the need of the business. And I think this upskilling will help us to align at least to some extent to the changing needs. There's a rotation. So I see that there's a rotation from the auditors are moving towards business. As I mentioned that, you can use, with the help of technology, you can do 100% vouching. We are going back to the basics where we used to do 100% vouching. It's online. You can use various tools to do those things. So you invest more and more time to understand business, right? Understand business, how business is performing, what is the risk of that business, how the risk can be mitigated. So auditors are shifting more towards business and business is shifting towards auditing. Why I say so is basically there will be, if you see that there are a lot of tools, right, in their ERPs or their network, they use a lot of tools which gives you a negative report. They give you there are in the 3 layer of defense, first and second defense is so robust that at the time of any error or thing, it's taken care. So people are the firms, the auditee are implementing the tools and they're also becoming more robust, so that preliminary audit is being done by the client himself, so that the client is also wants that the system should be robust, and they are moving towards the auditing part. Now with this we'll come to the AQMM checklist. So human resource management, so it is of 240 marks overall, and let's see what it talks about. First point is that resource planning and monitoring as per the firm's policy. Just excuse me for a minute. Sorry. Yeah. So first point is all about, do you have a skill matrix? Do you know what exactly your people are good at? What are their skill set? So first talks about, does the firm have a process of employee resource planning for engagement based on their skill set? So someone is good at Excel, someone is good at internal audit, he has a good command over IT. So do we have a mapping, first of all, that do we know our people, what they are good at? Then do we allocate them? Do we have method of allocation of work or resources to those assignments? What is a tool? What is a mechanism? It can be a simple Excel sheet where you say that, okay, ABC is good at IT. So, when there is a IT audit, you are allocating him to that. Do you have a mechanism of tracing the skill set metrics? Then allocating that resources to that assignment. And after that, most important, that is there a tracking activity, right? Productivity analysis. Are you tracking the activity of the people? Are you allocating them the right kind of work? If you have this mechanism, then there are 4 points a firm can fetch out of 240. So this all covers 2.1 covers almost 28 points. So we'll see in detail. Resources and planning, monitoring as per the firm. So this 2.1 continues and it talks about few ratios, which are very interesting ratios. And I think very few firms work on this and see whether, and it helps you to improve your productivity also, to see that whether management is overutilized, underutilized, your manager is overutilized, and how it is very nicely structured here. You will see that first it talks about does the firm maintain the minimum staff to partner ratio. So it talks about the ratios, right? We as a chartered accountants love to analyze the balance sheet, cash flows, ratios of our clients. But have we analyzed, do you have a mechanism in your firm to analyze how many people you have, how many people, if you divide it total number of partners, what is the partners to staff to partner ratio, partner to manager ratio? And if you have that benchmarking set, I think it will help you to understand and review what kind of work is being allocated, what is the gap or vacuum where you can allocate more kind of work to them. Do the partner has a optimum size of team, or instead of adding more partners, can you increase the team under any other partner? So this all will help you to analyze and see, and definitely it is directly linked with your cost, efficiency, productivity, and everything. So if you have this mechanism, you get 8 points. Does the firm monitor the utilization and realization rate per employee? So what is the utilization rate? That okay, what is the total number of people available, their minutes or time available for any assignment, and how much is utilized or realized? So if I have 10 hours in a week of this X, how much is being realized in any client? So out of 10, if you have realized 5, right? So he is idle for 5 hours, or his productivity is low. So out of this 10 hours spent, how much you could realize from the client, right? So if you have that mechanism of review, then you get 4 points, otherwise it's 0. Maximum you can fetch 4 points. Does the firm have the document of resource planning of each engagement? So if some assignment, definitely today also what we do, if some new assignment has come in, we definitely see that with what team is, who is available, what team size is available, who will put in how much time in this resources, what will be the timeline. We do it, but might we not be documenting it, right? So it says that if you have a mechanism of documenting this whole resource plan for each engagement, then you can fetch 4 points. Now there is a reference to the ratio. There is an interesting survey which was done by one of the firm, that is BDO. So I've taken a relevant extract from that survey, which in 2017 they had done a ratio of partners to staff for the top 6 or big 6 firms of UK at that point in time in 2017. So you see that PwC has 24 or 25 staff per partner. Grant Thornton has 23.8, KPMG has 23, EY and BDO has 18, Deloitte has 20. Now this can be a benchmark, right? It obviously it will change depending on the nature of the firm, depending on the nature of the assignment and everything. But we have a benchmark that do each partner has 18 to 25 people? If yes, or if we are within this range, then at least we are following the industry standard. If not, let's say if one partner has 50 people, right? Or if it has 2 people, then you need to really think that what is lagging is number of clients, complexity. So what is there? So institute want us to think from this point of view. We do working capital. When we see the working capital of a client, we say, okay, current ratio should be this much, this should be this much, as per industry, beta should be this much, PAT, PBT should be this much. But have we analyzed ourselves and see that are we meeting the benchmarks of the industry? So it's, I think it's very interesting. When I gone through this survey, it was very interesting for me also to see that where we are. Now 2.3, 2.2, around 44 points out of 240 focuses on the employee training. Do we have a right kind of framework for the employees? It's not only about general training, but it's also about the specialized training. It's talk about the also at each level the number of hours that training is required. Obviously, at a junior level, you will have more number of hours that is required. So they're given, if you have 60 hours per year for juniors or more, then you get X number of points, 2 points for the general training, 6 points for the specialized training. So there is, based on the junior, senior, and your matrix that you have, what kind of training and how many hours of training is being given to them. And based on that, the firm can fetch the points on this. Then let's talk about the technology skill set. As we have been talking and seeing that, okay, everyone's talk about the technology, but how it has impacted us, what is the skill set that we need? We already discussed about in few slides back that we need to have, we need to upgrade ourselves to use the intelligence tools. We used to RPAs, robotic process automation. So how we can use it to, to see that it enhances the audit quality. So do we have that kind of training for our team? If you have that, you can fetch 8 marks or 8 points. Now, this is very important, that do we have performance management culture and do we reward them? So so basically, if they are high level performer, they are following the quality ethics and everything, are we rewarding them? So there can be HR policy which says that, okay, and there should be a review mechanism which tells that, okay, this is a good performer, high performer, this is a discipline, ethics, no issues, and this is a variable pay that we are paying. So if you have a documentation of that, you get 8 marks. Now it talks about the composition of the team. So what is the team strength? What are the number of managers, paid staff, paid assistant? What is the composition of the overall structure or an audit team? Is it a mix of people, or is it only juniors, or you have manager? What is the hierarchy? Based on that, and and what is the employee turnover ratio? So whether you are monitoring what is the attrition rate, what is, let's say, if attrition rate in the industry is 20% or 10%, where you are, what is the reason of the attrition? Are you analyzing it? If you're analyzing it, what is a way to see that it can be minimized? Have that action being taken by the partners to see that attrition rate is minimized? One can be overtime, so, or other can be let's say employee satisfaction. So why they are not satisfied? Are you monitoring it? Are you documenting it? And are you taking action on it? If that is there, then you fetch 8 points. Then there are category wise, you have a pointing for points for qualified professionals is retained by the firm. So if you have, let's say, 10 or more professionals, you get 20 points. If you have 4 to 5 professionals, you get 8 points. Continuing on the same 2.3, it talks about relationship, employee relationship. Are you monitoring, like you're monitoring the attrition? Are you monitoring how many years someone has spent with you? What you can do to improve and retain them? Are the statutory compliance being taken care? Are the health policy, other benefits which is appropriate is given to the employees? Does the firm evaluate for which kind of audit? Does it have a revolving door between the different engagements for the people below the partner level? So revolving door in the context of audit is basically if someone has joined today and they are within 6 months or 3 months, people are resigning from that assignment or from that department. So do you have a mechanism to monitor that because of these revolving door, there should not be a compromise in the quality standards, and also to analyze why the people are resigning only from this assignment or with this partner and all those things. So if you have that kind of mechanism, you fetch 4 marks. Then it talks about the established framework and time commitment of the men. So is there a process where you are reviewing? Is there a framework where you can assess at each level, whether your management people or managers or partners are performing as it is required, as it is committed, are they following the timeline? If you have that, you so out of this you can fetch 8 points. Then let's talk about the access and use of technology. As we are talking about the infrastructure, do you have right kind of infrastructure methodology for better enablement of day-to-day work? If yes, then again you can fetch points. And is there a coaching and mentoring program, especially for the women colleagues, so that there is a equality in the firm? So if you have, then you fetch out of these all 3 points, you can fetch 8 points. Then it talks about the special policies to provide people time to rejuvenate, especially after busy audit session. So after busy audit session, do you give time to people to go and release their stress, take some rest, come with with a fresh mind after so maybe 2 days, 3 days, whatever. So do you have a special policy? So this helps in 2 ways. One is to the people who are working with the firm to rejuvenate, and second is the firm also understand that what is the concentration or dependency on any skill set or any kind of people or set of people of the firm. So if they're on leave, what exactly? If you see all the MNCs, they give a compulsory leave of 5 days where they cannot access their emails and everything. So firm wants to check what is the dependency of the company on that person, right? So it should not happen that due to for any reason, if that person is not available, there is a risk to the business or the operations. So it helps both ways. Focus on the staff well-being. We already discussed policy to ensure that there is a right kind of balance, communication, engagements, their responses are being heard of. So is there a right kind of policies focusing on the support for the staff? Then do you have a survey, credible employee survey? Do you listen to their problems? Do you conduct a survey, or it's just a one side where senior management has decided and it's been executed? So definitely, so if you have all these points, then you can fetch the points as mentioned against each category. Standard of recruitment people assessment methodology. So this is very important. If you see that, do you have a right kind of evaluation methodology system before bringing the fitment, before bringing the person on board? So we experience that after 3 months of working, we say, no, this person is not performing. Okay, it can be one of the exceptional case, or maybe 20-30% of the cases. But if 80% of the cases your people say, no, sir, recruitment is not working right, or the quality is not fetching in, I think then the problem is not in the people, then we should go back and see whether we have a right standard methodology of appointing the right kind of people. Are we mapping the right requirement? Do we need what skill set you need to execute what kind of work? Do we have a right evaluation process before onboarding anyone? I think if we have shortlisted a right kind of people, then this problem doesn't come about the quality. First, talking about, do you have the policy and a right kind of mechanism? Are the employees of the firm compensated as per the defined approach mapped to the knowledge and experience? So do you have a bar or a I would say a scale where you say that, okay, this kind of experience, this, and will have a range of, if it is someone is of 5 years of experience in internal audit or having this kind of skill set, this will be a benchmark, or this will be a scale of salary that will be. Definitely someone will be outperformer, you can pay more or less, but broadly the industry trend, based on the industry trend, do you have, because what happens if someone you are paying X who is of the same experience, and the other person who is already working with the same department, same experience, you're paying 5x, then there will be a lot of disinterest of the person who is giving X, and it will create a negativity. So do you have a standards? And then definitely, as already mentioned earlier, that if someone is performing better, you can always incentivize them. So do you have that kind of policy? If yes, you can fetch 4 points. Now, coming to the qualification skill set of the employees and experts who are involved in the firm to conduct the audit. What kind of FCAs, ACAs you have in the team? What is their composition? If you have, let's say in a team you have above 50 people are 50% of the people are ACA qualified professionals, you get 12 points. Then post-qualification courses based on the requirement. Are you updated, upskilling? There are post-qualification courses from the like DISA, IFRS, from the ICI. If that is being done, there are additional points that can be fetched by the firms. There are few specialized courses, so it continues that if we are doing international qualifications like IFRS, diploma in IFRS, Ind AS, etc., then you get. So it talks about how many people in the total team has done this. So if let's say for 30 people, 30% of the people, let's say you have a team of 10 and 30% of the people, that is more than three or less than people have done this qualification, you get 4 points. If more than 5, that is about 50% of the people have done this diploma, certifications, etc., then you can fetch 12 points. Let's talk about the performance evaluation measure. It's very important to have a KPIs of the firms, of the partners. KPI should not be subjective, it should be objective. What exactly is expected from the partner level, right? In terms of business, in terms of quality, in terms of ethical requirements, independence, everything should be documented, implemented. It should have a right way of monitoring. It should be very objective, where you can define it, you can measure it, and then see whether what is the performance at the year end or on the periodicity that you are looking to review. So does the firm has KPI? If you have all this ecosystem, you get 8 points. Sorry, there's a repetition of 2.1, just excuse me. So this is basically the from the HR. So 2.1 to 2.5 we covered. Now the last part of this AQMM is practice management, strategic and functional. So basically it talks about the infrastructure, the credentials of the firm. In case you have any questions, you can please unmute or you can write on the chat box. Happy to take the questions, whatever you have, or we can, at the end of the session, we can have a Q&A. So in case you have any questions, I will be happy to, generally this online sessions are one-sided, but happy to take in case you have any questions. Now, third point is the third section is basically which has 80 marks, 80 points is on the practice management, again strategic and functional. It covers. So it talks about what is a mix of people. Does the firm manage following attributes relating to the assurance partners to maintain the same at optimum levels as defined fit in the respective organization? So basically, it's talk about what is a mix of partners. It's talk about that you should have white hair, gray hair, black hair, young people, senior people, so that there should be a mix, right? What is the average experience of the partners? So for the average partner experience of, if it is more than 5 years, you get 4 marks. If you have more than 10 years of average experience, you get 8 marks. So maximum points that you can fetch out of this point is 8 marks. Then next point on this is the firm complying with ICI Code of Ethics, Companies Act, and the other regulatory requirements, professional independence and conflict of interest. So basically, we saw the standards which is applicable to all the CA firms and practicing chartered accountants are those standards, standards on auditing, code of ethics. So are we complying with those requirements? If yes, we are complying, the maximum you can fetch 8 months, and everything has to be documented. There will be an implementation guide that is on the way, and I think should be out in a month or so, or maybe before that, where institute is coming, CAQ is working on implementation guide, which will have a detailed questionnaires. It will help you to implement these AQMM in your firm. So it will have the detailed checklist also, so that you can come to know that what exactly is required to be followed and how it has to be measured. Now, do you have a whistleblowing policy in the firm? So whistleblowers refers to a person who raises the alarms for any fraud, scam, illegal activities, and unethical practices within the firm, right? So if you have a whistleblower policy, a policy may provide rights to the employee to report such kind of inappropriate activities. And so this will help the employees to report such kind of activities. So it's very important. We experience in our clients that yes, if you visit any client who is of a decent size, they will have this all kind of whistleblower policies, where whom to report, how you can approach, even a single at any level that person can approach to those management people. There is a committee who review what is the complaint and see how it can be improved. So this is a very important aspect that a firm should have. Number of branches, with the quality, it's also talking about the volume, right? Volume, how big your firm is, and how many branches or associates the firm has, or is it associated with any network firm. So basis the network and your branches, the maximum score that you can fetch is 8. And then it's talk about the physical and other security. So basically, are the branch level activities, so it's talk about the infrastructure. It's talk about whether the firm has a centralized or decentralized process of working. It's mainly from the accounting, invoicing, and payroll processing point of view, so that there is a standard process which is being followed. It should not happen that that a firm, one branch is following one set of policies for billing, accounting, and payroll processing. The other branch is using the other set of policy. So if it is centralized, definitely there will be a standardization, and that's why there is a higher point which is being given for the centralized level of activities. So maximum point you can fetch out of this point is 8. Then it talks about the physical and logical security of the information, and extended and implemented across all the locations. So it's so physical and logical. I think both is important. So with this physical security, it covers about CCTV cameras, surveillance, security guards. Do you have, and with fire protection of the server, of the people. So this is on the physical part of the site. On the logical side, they talk about the access control, token authentication, biometric measures. They talk about the passport, passwords, user profile permissions. If you have any system which you are using, the data which is secure, who can use which kind of data, basis the complexity of the data you have. Then the NDA you have signed. Now we are also expecting the Data Privacy Act. So with that, are we prepared enough to see that there is a logical security to the information that we have? Because we have a critical data of the client. So how we are protecting that? So if there is a right kind of infrastructure, physical as well as logical security, then you can fetch 8 points on this point. Then are these adequate DA tools, right? Data analytical tools and IT infrastructure available, and they being used for the relevant assignment? So there are two things. First of all, do you have this kind of infrastructure? Because with the data analytical tools, it helps us to optimizing as well as automating the task, right? So if there is a repetitive task that someone is doing, we can do it with the tool. So there are two sides of this. Is first, do you have that infrastructure or tools that is available? Do you have that knowledge? What kind of tools are available? What should be used? Do you have a licensed version of these tools? And second is, are we using these tools? Right? Sometimes we see that we have the tools, but we don't have a skill set. People of the skill set who can use these kind of tools. So we need to have a combination that we have a right kind of tools and we are using it, document it, so that this activity is performed by manually, this activity is performed with the help of this tool, and this is the report. If you have that reference document, then you can fetch 12 points of this out of this subsection. Is the infrastructure adequate in terms of internet, intranet bandwidth, VPN, Wi-Fi, etc.? So is the right kind of infrastructure provided to the team, right? So if you have a right kind of infrastructure where the VPN services, the internet download speed, everything is online browsing, that infrastructure is provided, they have a right speed, etc. Then do you have a video, if you have a video conferencing, is there a challenge in video streaming, etc.? So if that infrastructure is in place, you can fetch 12 points. Now 3.3 is basically the credentials of the firm. Credentials of the firm in the sense that is the firm ICAI peer reviewed firm. It can be that you are doing a listed entity audit, and so you come under that criteria where it is essential to have a peer review, or it can be firms can approach the ICAI by their own and get this suo moto. They can seek for peer review certification to the peer review board and get themselves peer review certified. So once you have, it's not exactly ISO, but it's a sort of ISO for us, which says that, okay, if you are peer review certified firm and you have a certificate of if you have a certificate from the ICAI peer review board, then it means that you are adhering to those standards, and there is a system and processes in the firm. Now, currently, if you see that this AQMM is a collaborative approach with ICAI peer review board and the CAQ, that is Center of Audit Quality. So it's a collaborative approach. Currently, it will be two different kind of assessments: peer review and AQMM will continue in way. Peer reviewer will ask for audit of that how you are following, even if it is recommendatory as of now, and if there is a peer review going on, peer review auditor might ask for what is the stage of or status of AQMM in your firm. Have you implemented, though it is recommendatory, are you following that? What is the level? So currently it will work parallelly, but it's a collaborative approach. Maybe going forward it can be combined, or some synergy can be built in. So if you are ICAI peer review certified, you get 4 points. Are you empaneled with RBI and C&AG? Right. So these are the two most important regulatory bodies. So as they specify the norms and eligibility criteria of the CA firms to get selected as a statutory auditor of bank, PSUs, etc. So scoring shall be determined based on the CA firms empaneled with RBI and C&AG. So if yes, you are empaneled with RBI and C&AG, you can fetch maximum 8 marks. Now, these are few points where there is a negative marking for the firms, right? So under the practice credential, is there any advisory as well as decision to not allot work to the unsatisfactory performance by CA and AG office? So basically CAG office. So basically first the point is allotted to you if there is a registration, or you are empaneled with them. But after maybe you have received some assignment and there has been unsatisfactory performance, the report could not be submitted on time, or after submitting of time there was a review from the C&AG, and it was found that the quality was not right and they have given an unsatisfactory performance, and there is an advisory internally. It's not, they have not blacklisted, but you have an advisory, right? So do not allocate the work to your firm, then there's a -5 marks to it. Now, how many years this should continue, whether it is for the last year or subsequent last 3 years, or if any time in lifetime of the firm it has been, there was advisory, will this -5 will continue every year? So this all I think will be sorted once we have a implementation guide. Have any government bodies, authorities evaluated the performance of the firm to the extent of debarment or blacklist? So basically, if you have there is no advisory, after advisory you have been blacklisted, right, or debarred, then you have a negative marks of 10 points. So if there was an assessment from the quality review board and there was a negative assessment, there was some recommendation given by them, right? So there was any flaw in the system or on the report disclosure side, or they are not satisfied with the quality and they are given a negative assessment to the report that has been issued by the firm, then yes, again you get a negative marking of 5 points. Now the last slide of this is credential of the firms, basically the testimony of quality of the firm. So basically, has there been a case of professional misconduct on the part of members of the firm where he has been proved guilty? So whether ICAI ethics committee, the person, the member or a partner, have been guilty of any misconduct and it has been proved. If yes, then there is a negative marking of 5. So the maximum score is 0, and if someone has been found guilty, then 5 points will be reduced from the total points that have been achieved by the firm. So with this, I complete the areas that was allocated to me for day 2 of AQMM. So I'll be happy to take question and answers from the audience if there is any. Saket ji, back handing over to you. Saket ji.
Yes, thank you so much, Mohit bhai.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any question and answers, queries for the participants like? Are there any queries of any of the participants? Mohit bhai ne, you have put in the things so nicely, where all the things have been really taken up in the great spirit by all the participants.
So there are two things, sir. Either they have understood everything or nothing.
No, I take it the earlier part because I feel that chartered accountants are always very smart on that.
Yeah, that's true.
Nice seminar, no questions. Nitin sir is an expert person on internal audit and all the things. Thank you so much, Nitin sir. On behalf of Team Nagpur branch, we extend hearty thanks to Mohit bhai for sparing his valuable time for the benefit of members. Sir, we would definitely be awaiting you to welcome at Nagpur, because the things which you told in by virtually, I feel whenever you are going to present this in person, this would add more value, because at that point of time you will be able to really share your practical experiences. And maybe in next year, when this recommendatory things gets into flow and people start using this, I feel there would be many more questions, many more things that would be coming up on that.
That's true. That's true.
So thank you so much, Mohit sir. for giving a wonderful deliberation, and thanks to all the participants for attending in large numbers and making this conference a big success. Thank you one, thank you all as we close out.
Thank you everyone. Thanks, Arpit.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
End करू sir session?
Right.
Okay, thank you.